Hi, everybody. So thanks for joining us with a joint CABAF Customs and MPI webinar on the DTR process. Firstly, there'll be a poll that pops up. If everybody can answer that just with regards to what their current third-party provider is. The reason we need that information is so we can invite the software providers to future webinars to do live demonstrations. That'd be great. Just a bit of housekeeping before I start. If you have any questions, please just raise your hand or put your question in the question and answer box to be answered at a later time, or we'll also have a question and answers at the end as well. Just because this is a CABAF run webinar, just need to remind everybody that there is no discussion about, must be no discussion about prices, surcharges, fees, costs, particular customers, revenues, market shares, or other commercially sensitive topics. In particular, reminded that no market agreements have been or will be decided at meetings of CABAF, whether they involve prices, amount, or areas. So with me on my panel today, I have myself, Emma from CABAF. I've got Sylvester, who's the project manager for the DTR project, Adrian, Carlos, and Donya from MPI, and then Mark and Daniel from New Zealand Customs. We hold webinars every fortnight to cover off the current state of play. Because we're doing a phased approach, we give updates on the current challenges that we're facing, fixes that we've put in place, which I'd really like to reach out to those that haven't actually been invited or known about them to please keep an eye on the CABAF website, keep an eye on the emails that come out about them, and please join our webinars. It gives sort of a real-time update of what's going on, where we're at, who's involved, and what can be done before we go live on the 3rd of July. Okay, so first off, what is a domestic transshipment request? So in general, a domestic transshipment request, or a DTR, is just the electronic process for the underbond movement of uncleared cargo from one CCA or approved facility to another CCA or approved facility. So it's going to be replacing the current need for a collector's permit and a BACC in most instances. Currently we're working, it's been about a year now that we've been doing the air freight movements. I'm sure most of you will remember at the start it was a bit of a mess. So that's why Customs, MPI and CABAF have taken a joint approach this time round. It's also slightly more complex. Air freight is definitely just one mode of goods arriving into the country, whereas sea freight, you have FCLs, FAKs, break bulk, and also LCL cargo to think about. The reason for the change is because the current method is outdated. It's a hard piece of paper that you need to go and present. You need to ring the ports to get shipping line hold, well, not shipping line holds, but the port holds removed. It's quite a manual process for everybody, whereas this new way will be electronic. It removes the ability for everything to be on a paper. So it can just be electronic. Anybody can do it. You do not need a PIN number to be able to lodge a DTR. So what are the benefits? So at CABAF, we talk a lot about reducing the MPI haystack. Up until just recently, it's been on average 4 to 6, sometimes 7 or 8 days, depending, to receive a BACC back. Whereas what we're trying to do is reduce that, so MPI officers can be focused on what they truly need to look at as far as risk cargo, and the things that are just being stopped as due process can be pushed through and released without delay. So with the FAK cargo, your DTRs are lodged electronically. You are lodging both MPI and customs at the same time, and the response time is in line with our customs entries. So sometimes 2 to 3 minutes. If TSW is having a bad day, it can be an hour, I guess, but in the most part, it's pretty quickly done. At the same time, just like a customs entry, that release goes through to the ports. You don't need to wait for a BACC. You've got your responses back to be able to then move your cargo. For FCL cargoes, the benefits are no more paper, no more collectors permits for FCLs being moved under bond, and for LCL cargo, electronic releases to the unpacked depot. So you're not having to fill out a form for each shipment or fill out a bulk form if you're moving bulk shipments, a lot of shipments through to your own yard. I'll just go back, sorry. We've currently got almost 80% volume wise of the FAK submitters doing this new process and actively submitting them via their computer systems. So that, coupled with the end of the BMSB season, has seen a significant reduction already in the MPI haystack, and reducing our BACCs for normal entries down to about 2 to 3 days currently. So I think that's a great positive to be taking away already. I do realize that it's most likely going to be increasing once we go back into the next BMSB season. However, with everybody getting on board with the FAK cargo and also being able to do LCL cargo at the same time, it will just mean that MPI can focus on what they need to focus on and not processing BACCs for FAKs. So the way that we've structured the DTR rollout is there's 3 phases. The first phase is obviously the FAK cargo, which includes eCom. So these are submitted electronically through CargoWise, through Expedient, Trade Window, or any other in-house system that you have. As a backup, TSW also has a module for this as well. You do require documents to be able to submit your DTR. That is a valid quarantine declaration, a detailed manifest of the cargo, and a bill of lading. For eCom, at that point, you can also put in your values for your write-offs, and the cost, which I think is around $580, is still the same cost for the eCom, but you can do your DTR at the same time. There's no cost currently, and from what I hear, not in the near future anyway, to submit a DTR. So it's pretty straightforward. Phase 2 is FCL cargo. So this would be an instance where you've submitted your import declaration, it's been held for customs, and you've got a BACC back, or it's gone into the queue to get a BACC completed, and MPI and customs need to inspect that cargo either off port or move it to their own site. In which case then you can apply for a DTR for the custom side of things. It will come back with 2 messages, just like a normal DTR. However, it will refer you to use your BACC. The other option that you could use this for is moving freight back to your yard that isn't customs cleared. You would still need to do an IPI to complete your BACC process, but you don't need to do a collector's permit anymore because the DTR would replace that. The second part of phase 2 is obviously LCL cargo. So this is where you would be collecting cargo under bond from a depot, a CCA, and bringing it back to your own yard or another CCA under bond without clearance. It's the same process as an FAK cargo. So you would lodge your DTR request and gain responses back from MPI and customs. I just checked it today, and there's no mandatory documents required for MPI and customs for LCL cargo. However, if you do have them there and they're available, it might make things a bit easier in the long run to attach them. And I'm just going to hand over now to Sylvester, because the last phase of it is phase 3, and that is for the port-to-port transshipments.
Yeah, thank you, Emma. Yeah, phase 3 is for port-to-port transshipments, as we've been saying before. This is for any container or cargo that needs to move between ports and by sea. So the requesters for phase 3 DTRs will be the shipping companies. Now, we met with the shipping companies in April, give them a deadline to provide us with when they can become compliant, because they've been given the requirements. And by the 5th of May, a lot of them came back with when they can become compliant. So as I said, it's 2 parts. The shipping companies need to send DTRs, and the port companies need to be able to interpret those. So port company testing has started with ports of Auckland and Port of Tauranga, and shipping companies have come back with dates. So based on that, we've produced a transition plan. So if now that the mandate date is 3rd of July, within 3 months, we would expect all the shipping companies to be compliant with DTRs for any port-to-port transshipments. So we're looking at a date of 6th of October, by which everything should be DTR compliant, shipping companies as well as ports. Like I said, we are testing at the moment. So there's 2 parts to the testing. Ports is happening as we speak, and very shortly we'll start with the shipping companies. Some of them have said that they are already compliant. It's just a matter of customs now verifying them and then putting that process on and starting the pilot for phase 3. So we're expecting that phase 3 pilot to start by early June.
Perfect. Thank you. So if there's one message that I can pass on to everybody on this webinar today is if you haven't already started doing DTRs, you haven't got your head around it yet, you've still got no clue about it, please don't delay. Please check that your system is set up, that it is the most current version. Possibly speak with your IT team around your registry settings. If you're using CargoWise, we have had some instances where forwarders have had some weird and wonderful settings that have had needed to be changed for them to allow this. But if you are running the most current version, I believe it should be set up already. Please check your CCA codes, mainly your CCA codes, but also your ATF codes are correct in your system, as well as making sure that your ports with the notifications are turned on so that you can send these DTR messages to them. If you don't have the correct, it's a user system, so if you don't have the correct information going in there, chances are that you won't have the correct information coming back, and that's where delays could possibly happen with your releases. If you are an unpacking depot, or you unpack FAKs and release your LCL cargo to carriers, please check with your staff to understand how to read the DTR responses. They can be, depending on how your system is set up, either integrated through to the house bill level, or it can be just a simple 2 emails that come through, in which case you probably need to set up, if you haven't already, an email folder for these DTR movements separate to your current current customs declaration, so you could be able to then differentiate between the 2. Please just join our webinars if you are still not sure, and also reach out. We've got a dedicated email which is monitored, which is the dtr@mpi.govt.nz. They currently are basically, if somebody emails them, they'll stop what they're doing and email back. They'll set up a Teams call if there's something that they are hoping to help out with, to be able to set you up. As we move on in this journey and get closer to the 3rd of July, the team's focus is going to be elsewhere. So we may or may not be able to have the resource that we've currently got to be able to help people come on board. Once you are on board and you do understand how to do your DTRs and you're proficient at it and you're comfortable, the DTR team are comfortable, you no longer need to complete the current process. So once you've transitioned over, that's it. You don't need to go back to your old process of having the collector's permit and BACCs. We've found a lot of people that have started this now, and with the feedback, finding their responses are a lot quicker than the previous time of having to apply for a BACC, especially for the cargo coming from the likes of Australia, where the transit time is really short. Being able to have an instant response back into your emails and back into your systems to say that it's clear and ready for pickup at the ports, it just makes your current process a lot more smooth. So thank you so much for attending. I can see we've got 2 questions already, but further to that, just one more time, please write down that email address, or reach out to Kabath if you've got any further questions, if you'd like somebody to come and try and walk you through that process specifically to your requirements. Cool, thank you. Right, Carl. Okay, so question from Carl. We are pulling the BACC and delivery order copies from our TSW lodgements in order to pass to our FAK DTRs to depot. Oh, so you're having to pull them out. That's interesting. If you could let the team know, the DTR at MPI team know what that depot is, and have a chat to them offline, because we are working with the unpack depots as well to educate them. There was a webinar last week which was for them, and we're just trying to push on that side of things as well. So if you could do that, it'd be great. This one for you, Sylvester. Do we have an update on how far away Littleton are on having DTR up and running?
Oh, Littleton is up and running.
There we go.
So the Kabath newsletter last week said that. So yeah. So Littleton is up and running. Feel free to submit your DTRs through Littleton. Awesome.
Cool. Thank you. I'll just give it a couple more minutes just to see if any further questions come through. Sylvester or anybody else on the team, do you have anything to add or any comments?
Yeah, I see a few questions coming up about BACCs. Where is the BACC? How do we get the BACC? To Carl's point there, I think if you are sending your DTR for the first time to a new facility, I would recommend sending them the TSW email notifications training pack we've given you all. So please send that along so that it teaches them how to read those emails, what will be coming to their mailboxes. Also get them to check that their emails are correctly set up in TSW. And I'm sure, and I'm told that that can be done using a self-service, online self-service method.
Yeah, perfect. All right, we've got another question. Any ports not up and running in New Zealand yet?
Yes, at the moment, we only have 3 ports for phase 1 up and running. So that's Port of Auckland, Port of Tauranga, and Littleton. Now, this is for FAK, and we know that 98% of the volume comes through these ports only. The other ports are not up and running. They should come online because they have to comply with phase 1 and phase 3. The ports are busy, the smaller ports are busy making those changes and developing. So we should have some of the ports that use Navis come online before the mandate, and there are ports who don't use Navis, like Centerport, Southport, Nelson, and there was one more. Yeah, the 4 ports who do not use Navis, they use Navis Master Terminal, it's a different system. They will be ready only early July. So they may be slightly delayed.
FCL transfer from port to an address that is not a CCA, is there a workaround? That is, will stay with the current process with New Zealand Customs, which is a form that you need to fill out and get approval from NZ Customs to move to that premises that is not a CCA. So no, that won't change in the future. It'll probably most likely stay the same unless there's some sort of background changes in the legislation that allow that. Just give it a couple more minutes. I'll just reiterate again, please reach out to us if you have any questions, or if there's anything specific to your own company that you're not sure of. If you're a broker, for example, and you predominantly look after import clearances, but occasionally have to move freight under bond, but it's not a regular occurrence, please just make yourself aware and ensure that your company is set up to do this, because after the 3rd of July, there'll be no sort of going backwards as such. Yes, we can definitely send the presentation. I'll send it through to everybody. I'll attach it along with some further details and helpful guides through to our next newsletter, definitely. Okay, and Olivia said, I met with Littleton on the 15th of May and they said they weren't yet up and running, but I will recheck. So FAKs will no longer need BACCs. MPI held LCL consignments in those FAKs will, before they get uplifted from the unpack depot. If you can unpack, answer that one.
Yeah. I think you're right. The second point is just a statement, I suppose. You will need BACCs for those consignments inside, that's fine. But for the FAK, you no longer will need BACCs. And with regards to your point, they went live on the 18th. So if you met them on the 15th, they were still not active. So I think on Friday the 19th was when we sent the update.
Perfect. Yeah, absolutely. And if you get stuck, Olivia, please just reach out and we'll definitely help you. Or if there's anybody else down in Littleton that are having issues or concerns, please just reach out to us as well. Yeah.
One of the things we're doing as a result of this is updating the customs website. So we'll have a dedicated DTR sea freight information page. On that page, you will have the status of the ports. So you should see a table with which ports are active and which aren't. And that table will be kept updated almost once or twice a week.
Yeah. And we've also asked Customs and MPI to put together kind of a one-pager. So my concerns are the unpacked depots not knowing how to read the responses for a DTR movement. So we're just going to put together a one-pager that will be sent out to everybody and will also be available on the Customs website. That will help to instruct those unpacked depots on how to read, and that this is actually a Customs and MPI enforced change. So there should be no holdups with your freight there. We've got.
Yeah, well,
I just want to reiterate as well that FCL containers still need ultimately a import declaration or a BACC, and an IPI, which I'm sure you all are aware of, is only for absolute urgency. The only time that you would need to use for an IPI, I'm sure if you've all done them before, is you still need to basically do the import entry and get the information in there anyway. So it would be probably if you're waiting on discrepancies with costs or something like that. Again, if you're not sure, please reach out to us. We're here to help. We don't want to have too many dramas come the 3rd of July, and just want everybody to understand the different ways that a DTR can be applied as well. I think we'll call it a day. There's no other questions. Perfect. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you guys so much for coming, and I'll be sure to send out a copy of this shortly. Cool. Thank you.
Thank you, Emma.
Thank you
Thank you,
very much.
Kubeth.
Cheers.